Let's talk about something that affects every single one of us. Something we think about constantly, worry about, lose sleep over. And yet, somehow, we never really feel like we have a proper handle on it. I'm talking about money, but not in the way you might think. We're not going to dive into complex stock charts or confusing economic theories today. Instead, I want to talk about the real story behind money, the human story. Because if you look around, you'll see a really strange puzzle. Why do some people who earn a lot of money end up broke? And why do some people who seem to have very average jobs end up building incredible security and wealth for themselves and their families? It doesn't seem to add up, right? Well, the answer, it turns out, isn't really about the money itself. It's about the psychology behind it. It's about the stories we tell ourselves, the biases we have, the lessons we've learned, or failed to learn, from history. And this is exactly what the brilliant book, The Psychology of Money, by Morgan Housel, is all about. So, get comfortable, because we're going to go on a bit of a journey into what truly drives financial success, and, more importantly, financial happiness. Imagine two people. One is a brilliant, high-powered financial analyst. This person went to the best schools, understands the most complex mathematical models, can dissect a company's balance sheet in seconds, and genuinely knows the mechanics of money inside and out. The other person is a janitor. He never went to college, he doesn't know what a price-to-earnings ratio is, and the world of hedge funds and derivatives is a complete mystery to him. Now, if this were a movie, the financial analyst would obviously be the wealthy one, right? But life isn't a movie. There's a famous true story about a janitor named Ronald Reed. He worked most of his life as a janitor at a J.C. Penney and also pumped gas part-time. He was frugal. He lived a simple life. And when he passed away in 2014 at the age of 92, he quietly left behind a fortune of over $8 million to his local library and hospital. Meanwhile, we've all heard stories of lottery winners or highly paid athletes who end up losing everything within a few years. So, what gives? How does a janitor end up with millions, while experts sometimes end up with nothing? The difference isn't intelligence, it's behavior. The single most important factor in your financial life isn't how smart you are, it's how you behave. And behaving wisely with money has very little to do with your IQ and everything to do with your emotions, your patience, and your ability to tell yourself a better story. See, we like to think that finance is a hard science, like physics or math. 2 plus 2 will always equal 4. But money isn't like that. Money is a soft skill. It's deeply woven into our emotions, our upbringing, our ego, and our unique view of the world. The way you handle money is a direct reflection of the experiences you've had. Someone who grew up during the Great Depression in the 1930s will have a completely different view of risk and saving than someone who grew up in the booming 1990s. Neither view is necessarily right or wrong. They're just different products of different environments. And this is so crucial to understand because it means that when someone makes a decision with their money that seems utterly insane to you, it might make perfect sense to them based on the financial world they've experienced. We're all driving down the financial road, but we're looking in different rearview mirrors. And your personal rearview mirror shapes everything. It determines how much risk you're willing to take, how much you feel you need to save, and what you think money is even for. So, if behavior is the key, what does good financial behavior actually look like? Well, a huge part of it is understanding the incredible, almost magical power of compounding. Now, I know you've heard of compound interest. It's the idea that you earn returns not just on your original money, but also on the returns you've already accumulated. It's interest on interest, but I don't think we really, truly feel it in our bones. We understand it intellectually, but we fail to grasp its immense power. Because it works on a time scale that our brains aren't wired to appreciate. Our brains are built for immediate feedback. We're hunter-gatherers at heart. We want to see the results of our actions right now. Compounding is the absolute opposite of that. It is mind-numbingly boring and painfully slow at first. It requires a level of patience that feels almost unnatural. Let me give you a famous example. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest people in the world. Now, when you think of Buffett, you probably think of this incredibly successful investor. But here's a fact that will blow your mind. Warren Buffett's net worth wasn't always astronomical. In fact, he didn't become a billionaire until he was 50 years old. Think about that for a second. The world's most famous investor, who started investing as a teenager, didn't hit $1 billion until he was halfway through his life. But then, the magic happened. His net worth didn't just grow, it exploded. By age 60, he was worth billions more. By age 70, tens of billions. Now in his 90s, his wealth is measured in over $100 billion. The vast majority of his wealth was built after his 50th birthday. That is the power of compounding. It's like rolling a snowball down a very, very long hill. For the first 100 feet, it seems like nothing is happening. You're just picking up a few flakes. It's tedious. You might be tempted to give up. But if you stick with it, and you let that snowball keep rolling, eventually it reaches a point where it's gathering so much snow with every single inch that it becomes an unstoppable force. It becomes an avalanche. The key is that you have to stick around for that entire ride. You have to be in the game long enough for the compounding to do its heavy lifting. This is why time is the most important ingredient in building wealth. It's not about finding the next big stock. It's about staying invested in decent ones for decades and decades. The returns you get in years 1 through 10 are nice, but the real magic happens in years 20, 30, and 40. The problem is that our desire for action, our need to do something, often gets in the way. We get bored. We get tempted by new, shiny opportunities. We think we're smarter than just sitting still. But so often, the best financial move is to do nothing at all. Just wait. Just be patient. It's the simplest advice in the world, and yet it's the hardest to follow. And this leads us to another incredibly important idea: the role of luck and risk. These two forces are the silent partners in every financial outcome, and we are terrible at acknowledging them. We see a hugely successful person, and we weave a narrative around their brilliance, their hard work, their foresight. And we see someone who failed, and we craft a story about their poor decisions, their laziness, their mistakes. But the truth is, every outcome in life is a mix of skill and luck. Every single one. The problem is that we can only see the outcome. We can't see the alternative universe where things played out slightly differently. Let me tell you a story to illustrate this. Imagine two identical twins, both incredibly smart and ambitious. Let's call them Alex and Sam. They both decide to start their own tech companies in Silicon Valley in the late 1990s. They both work equally hard. They're both equally talented. Alex's company gets a lucky break. A chance meeting with a venture capitalist at a coffee shop who loves the idea. That meeting leads to funding, which leads to growth. And eventually, Alex's company goes public, and he becomes a billionaire. Sam, on the other hand, has a different path. A key member of his team gets sick and has to leave the company. A competitor launches a similar product just 1 week before he does. His pitch to a different venture capitalist falls flat because the VC was in a bad mood that day after a fight with his wife. Sam's company runs out of money and fails. Now tell me, was Alex fundamentally better than Sam? Or was he just luckier? The outcome was drastically different, but the input, the effort, the intelligence, the ambition was nearly identical. This is what happens in the real world all the time. We look at the Bill Gateses and the Steve Jobses of the world, and we attribute their success solely to their genius. But we forget that they were also born at exactly the right time, in exactly the right place, with exactly the right opportunities. If Bill Gates had been born 10 years earlier or later, his story might be completely different. Understanding this is humbling. It should make us less judgmental of those who fail and less arrogant in our own successes. When you do well, a healthy portion of it was likely due to luck. And when you see someone else fail, a healthy portion of that might have been risk, bad luck that was outside of their control. This isn't to say that hard work doesn't matter. It matters tremendously. But it's not the only thing that matters. Acknowledging the role of luck makes you kinder. Acknowledging the role of risk makes you more cautious. And that caution brings us to one of the most practical ideas in all of this. Always, always leave a margin of safety. Always have room for error. We love to make plans. We project our income. We budget our expenses. We forecast investment returns. But the future is fundamentally unknowable. The world is messy and unpredictable. Things will go wrong. Your car will break down. The roof will spring a leak. The economy will enter a recession. You might lose your job. A global pandemic might hit. Nobody has a crystal ball. So, the smartest people don't try to predict the future with pinpoint accuracy. Instead, they build plans that are robust enough to survive being wrong. They build in a cushion. They practice what's called conservatism. This means that if you think you need $1 million to retire comfortably, you might aim for $1.5 million, just in case. It means that if you think you can safely withdraw 4% from your investments every year in retirement, you might only withdraw 3% to be safe. It means having an emergency fund that can cover not just 3 months of expenses, but maybe 6 or even 12. It means not investing every single dollar you have, even if the math says you'll get a higher return. You keep some cash on the sidelines because you know that life will inevitably throw a surprise bill your way. This margin of safety is what allows you to stay in the game. When the market crashes by 50%, if you have a margin of safety, you don't panic. You don't have to sell your investments at the bottom to pay your bills. You can actually see the crash as an opportunity to buy more at a discount. Your margin of safety gives you the staying power, the endurance, to wait for the recovery. It turns a crisis from a disaster into an inconvenience. It's the difference between being fragile and being anti-fragile. Without a margin of safety, you're walking on a tightrope without a net. One gust of wind, one misstep, and it's over. With a margin of safety, you're walking on a wide, solid path. You can stumble, you can get pushed, and you'll be just fine. Now, all of this patience, all of this saving, all of this prudent behavior, it's all for a purpose, right? It's not just to see a big number on a screen. It's for freedom. And this might be the most important point of all. True wealth is not about the cars you drive or the house you live in or the designer clothes you wear. In fact, real wealth is exactly the opposite. Real wealth is the money you don't spend. It's the cars you didn't buy, the lavish vacations you didn't take, the bigger house you decided you didn't need. It's the assets that are still in your investment account, working for you, providing you with security and options. The biggest luxury that money can buy is not stuff, it's control over your time. It's the ability to wake up in the morning and say, "What do I want to do today?" without having to ask for permission from a boss. It's the ability to spend time with your family when you want to. It's the ability to walk away from a job you hate or a client who treats you poorly. That is the ultimate dividend that your investments pay out. It's not the cash, it's the freedom that the cash represents. And this is why the endless game of comparison is so toxic. We look at our neighbors and we see their new boat, and we feel a pang of jealousy. We think they're winning, but we have no idea what their balance sheet looks like. That boat might be financed to the hilt. They might be one missed paycheck away from financial disaster. They might be deeply stressed and anxious, putting on a show of prosperity for the outside world. When you define wealth as what you see, you will forever feel poor because there will always be someone with a nicer boat, a faster car, a bigger house. But when you define wealth as what you don't see, the freedom, the security, the peace of mind, you can feel rich even on a modest income. The goal is to get to a point where you have enough. And enough is not a number. It's a feeling. It's the feeling that you have what you need, that you're secure, and that more money won't dramatically improve your happiness. The hardest financial skill in the world is to know when to stop, to know when to say, "This is enough. I have won the game. I don't need to keep risking what I have for something I don't need." That is the pinnacle of financial wisdom. So, to tie all of this together, building wealth isn't about being a genius. It's about being consistent, patient, and reasonable. It's about understanding that your personal experiences shape your decisions more than any spreadsheet ever will. It's about harnessing the unbelievable power of compound interest by staying in the market for the long, long haul, through all its ups and downs. It's about acknowledging the role that luck played in your successes and the role that risk plays in everyone's failures. It's about always leaving a healthy margin of safety, because the world is unpredictable, and you need to be able to survive being wrong. And ultimately, it's about understanding that the real prize isn't a pile of money. It's the independence and the peace of mind that that pile of money can provide. It's about buying your freedom. The journey to financial security is a marathon, not a sprint. It's a journey of behavior, not intellect. And the beautiful thing is, that means it's available to anyone. It doesn't require a fancy degree or a high IQ. It just requires a bit of self-awareness, a lot of patience, and the wisdom to know what truly matters in the end. So, be kind to your future self. Make a plan, be consistent, and give yourself the incredible gift of time. Let the magic of compounding do its work, and one day, you'll look up and realize that you've built something far more valuable than just money. You've built a life of freedom,